Hi everybody, this is Dino Chris from Prehistoric Facts. Even though this was supposed to be an answering questions episode, so there hasn't been any questions that were sent, so basically I'm just going to do an extra episode. And this extra episode I'll be doing a movie review, where basically it's so basically with these extra episodes I'll do movie reviews, I'll actually do paleo news, and also talk about certain theories in paleontology, or even topics in paleontology. So basically this episode will be a movie review, and I've done a movie review before for an extra episode that was for the Jurassic World movie. So basically I'm actually going to choose a movie that actually came out a couple years ago, and basically it's already out on DVD, it's also on Netflix, so basically get your chance to actually get to see this thing. And basically, and there's a reason why I'm actually wearing the Sue apparel here. It's a clue to basically the movie that I'm actually going to be reviewing. And that is Dinosaur 13. And basically, Dinosaur 13 is basically the story of it's a documentary film, basically about the discovery and also the controversial confiscation by the U.S. government of taking Sue to basically be sealed in a warehouse and basically be auctioned off. And basically this is basically just a story mostly about the confiscation and also the court case, basically. So and it's an independent film, so basically this film is actually really good. I actually say check this out. This is actually a very good film. But even though, because CNN has actually got the rights to this movie, and basically they actually have bought the rights to the movie, and basically they actually added a few more scenes than what the original release actually did in basically selected theaters. When this movie came out, this was actually in selected theaters, and basically it's because it was an independent film and basically didn't make enough money, didn't actually cost a lot of money to actually make, and basically this was actually an award winner in the Sundance Theater Festival. And so with this documentary, and basically this documentary type of film, originally actually focused on one side of basically the court case, and that was basically the Larsons and the Black Hills Institute version of basically what happened. But even though CNN has actually done a really nice job of actually adding a couple more scenes where basically they did interviews with from the other side basically of the court case, and basically that actually has to play into part. You need to actually show both sides, because basically if you only show one side, then basically the public is actually just going to go like, oh, I'm just going to side with this side because basically the other side just did it all wrong, that sort of thing. Basically the story begins as basically the discovery of Sue. And basically it tells the story how Sue Hendrickson and Pete Larson and his brother, the other Larson brother basically, is actually out hunting for fossils in South Dakota, basically around the Hill Creek Formation. And what they actually did find a couple fossils basically, and basically Sue Hendrickson kind of wandered around, and basically she found some bones that were actually protruding out of the rock, and she actually saw that there were like tiny fragments of bone that were actually have eroded, and basically that actually ultimately become the discovery of Sue. And so she went to Pete Larson and basically said that, look what I found. And basically Pete Larson actually recognized these bones as basically Tyrannosaurus Rex bones. And so Sue Hendrickson actually basically showed where the fossil is located, and basically they actually started digging up Sue. And basically where Sue was found, it was actually owned by another person. And so basically what they actually kind of did was basically talk to the owner and basically said, here, you get a check from the Black Hills Institute, and basically we'll actually put it on display in the museum. But it wasn't until a couple of years ago where basically the tides have turned, or basically the winds have changed, and basically it was because the owner of the land has actually filed a complaint basically, and actually said to the U.S. government is that these people took something from my land, and basically it should be mine. And basically, the FBI and the National Guard have come to Hill City, South Dakota, and basically they had a warrant basically for Sue and other fossils that were collected that were considered to be possibly stolen from other pieces of land. And so, but basically once the warrant was issued, the FBI and the National Guard, once they were actually trying to take some of these fossils, they didn't know what they were doing with some of these fossils. It's because they never actually did any preparation for any of these things. It's because they were never taught anything about paleontology and about preservation of the fossils. And so what the Black Hills Institute did is that they helped, and so basically they helped them actually kind of get the fossils in the cases and basically make sure that they're carefully placed in the cases. And the whole entire town of Hill City was actually kind of confused about this whole thing, and they were kind of like, "What's going on here? What's actually going on here at the Black Hills Institute?" And they see the FBI and the National Guard, and they go like, "What's happening here?" And basically, the side of the story from the Black Hills Institute is that if the National Guard and the FBI are actually involved in this, there's something going on. And basically, they actually thought that basically there should be some common ground between the military and the FBI. And so that actually plays its part into this. And so Sue was taken away to a warehouse in Rapid City. And so they were actually, so Sue's bones were actually the skeleton of the largest Tyrannosaurus Rex and the most complete Tyrannosaurus Rex so far has been locked up in a warehouse. And so they actually had to, and Sue was in this warehouse for numerous of years, for many, many years. And it wasn't until around 97 or 98 is when basically the owners decided, basically the court has actually decided that the fossils are actually considered land. And so basically the fossils were actually considered land, and they actually had to be put into the owner's hands. And basically the owner decided that he wanted to auction off Sue. And basically, because he had to make a choice, does he actually want scientists to come into his property and basically take a look at this skeleton and actually say that they can actually buy the specimen right away, and then basically the highest price would actually be considered to be probably the best option for him. But basically he decided to auction it off, and basically the auction actually took place in New York City. And so then basically Sue was actually auctioned off over $8 million. And at this time, this was actually the highest paid fossil that was ever been purchased. And it was basically bought by the Field Museum with actually sponsors from Walt Disney and McDonald's of actually giving some of the money. And basically the skeleton of Sue is actually in the Field Museum in Chicago, Illinois. And so, but also the court case actually talks about basically how the case actually went down, and also what evidence is actually there to actually think like, was the Black Hills Institute doing anything illegal? And basically what happens is that there were checks, and also basically fossils and other types of specimens were not cleared by customs. So basically they went through customs. They went through customs without basically checked by customs, and basically they actually, the Black Hills Institute and Pete Larson actually kind of suffered a great deal of paying a lot of fines, and also Pete Larson was sentenced 2 years in prison. But even though I think the sentence was kind of a little harsh by the judge, just because basically Pete Larson kind of said something about the judge that basically kind of ticked the judge off. And basically said that, because the judge was like, okay, since he kind of made me mad, I would actually just give him a much harsher sentence than what is actually the maximum sentence, and which was supposed to be 6 months. And so basically what happened is that the judge ordered 2 years of imprisonment and 2 years of probation. And you see, the Larsons were actually basically in probation for numerous amounts of years, and basically the Black Hills Institute had a hard time recovering for this. But I mean, they didn't go bankrupt, but even though they actually still hung on, and they still collected fossils, and this time they actually were a little bit more careful of what they were doing. And so this time it was actually a point where basically that basically it was kind of like a battle between amateur fossil collectors and also professionals. And so basically what this kind of court case kind of actually did was actually talk to like professional paleontologists, and actually a lot of the professional paleontologists thought that the Larsons were actually amateurs and they were kind of stealing fossils rather than actually having like the proper education to become paleontologists. They actually decided to actually take some fossils and buy some of these fossils to actually believe that they were actually stealing fossils. But even though there are some supporters of the Larsons that say that they're not robbers, they're not stealing from land, at all. They're just really, really good people. They're very important to science and all that sorts of stuff. Robert Bacher is actually a big supporter of the Larsons, and Phil Curry is kind of more supportive of the Larsons, and but even though it's more like the Society of Vertebrate Paleontology has actually kind of been against the Larsons for many, many years. But I think a little bit kind of right now they're kind of settling the differences a little bit, but basically that professionals and amateur paleontologists can coexist. But anyway, that's what mostly of this movie is actually about. Dinosaur 13 is basically about the court case involving Sue and the Black Hills Institute and basically the U.S. government. And basically that's kind of how it has become. And since this was actually national news when this actually kind of happened, so basically it was around the early to mid 90s, and basically this was actually a court case that went on for many, many years, and basically it never went to a settlement. And some of the defendants actually did actually settle, did make a plea deal, but there were some that did not want to make a plea deal. They actually thought like they can actually win this battle by actually showing like what they actually had, what they actually didn't have, and all that sorts of stuff. And so for this movie, I'd say this is highly recommended. But even though basically this is a movie that basically will probably be for like people that actually understand court cases and also understand paleontology and also have known about this story for many, many years. And so this is actually a really good telltale about the court case. So basically, I would actually give this, in terms of like 5 stars, I would actually give this like probably between a 3.5 to 4 stars. This is actually a really, really good film. I would actually say that anybody who hasn't seen this, go either buy it on DVD or Blu-ray, and or otherwise if you actually want to watch it by the internet, you can actually check it on Netflix. It's on Netflix, so you can actually go see this on Netflix. It's actually a really good watch, and I highly recommend this film. It's actually more about the court case than anything else, but even though it does talk about the discovery of Sue, and also actually kind of actually goes into after the court case a little bit too, where basically Sue is actually in the Chicago Field Museum, and basically the people that were involved. But basically this is more about the people than anything else. But even though this is actually really good, really, really good, and so go check this out. And this is actually a really good film. I've watched this film many, many times, and I think this is actually really, really good. But anyhow, I actually did say that in the comment section on my Facebook page that I will actually talk about certain things in my collection. And so basically, I've actually chosen 2 replicas that I actually have in my collection. This first one here is this hand claw of an Acrocanthosaurus, and basically I've done an Acrocanthosaurus episode, and this for a special episode, and I have used this as actually a good reference of basically how powerful the claws are for an Acrocanthosaurus, and basically you can find Acrocanthosaurus claw replicas anywhere on any kind of website. So basically, if you're an Acrocanthosaurus fan, feel free to actually get these. This is actually very affordable. This is actually like almost $25, and so basically, check this. So check it out if you're an Acrocanthosaurus fan or dinosaur enthusiast or theropod enthusiast. Feel free to actually get one of these. And basically, the other one is the Coelophysis skull. I haven't done a Coelophysis special episode yet, but hopefully this would actually it would actually happen at some point. And but basically it's kind of flat. Basically it's kind of like how the fossils actually kind of is, and so because basically it looks like it's been kind of crushed by the pressure of the rocks. But even though it actually does show the teeth, basically the nice spacings of the skull, you can actually see a little bit of the neck vertebrae right here. And so it's actually really nice. It's actually really nice. This one is actually kind of found on like one website. So basically, one or two websites. So basically, if you actually search for Coelophysis skull replicas, you actually can find some that are actually. This one actually costs a little over $35, but basically, this is actually not that bad. So basically, this is actually a nice collection if you're actually a theropod enthusiast like myself, dinosaur enthusiast as well. I am a dinosaur enthusiast, but also I'm a dinosaur guy, and pretty much But basically, if you're interested in early theropod evolution, this is actually a really good thing to have in your collection. So feel free to actually get this. All right, that's it for now. I'll actually get the answering questions episode done probably next week, so feel free to actually send me any questions. But anyway, if you have any questions about dinosaurs or any other prehistoric life, feel free to email me at dinochris71@gmail.com, or otherwise go on my Facebook page, Prehistoric Facts with Dino Chris. Like the page, you can post your questions in the comments section on any Facebook post. But remember, keep your questions short to the point. Don't use the messenger. I can't read the questions that way. And also you can follow me on Twitter at CSGRALL. That's my Twitter page. I post pretty cool stuff on there. And also take care of the people around you. And also for you younger people out there, make sure to listen to your parents, your teachers, and your guardians. Those are the best benefits you can have for a good education. It's very important to have a good education. With a good education, you get a good job in the future. Alright, that's it for now, and I'll see you guys next week with a new answering questions episode. So feel free to send me any types of questions about dinosaurs or any prehistoric life. So see you next week.